There has always been a separation between the masses who work for money and the few who command it. For decades, a rumor persisted in Silicon Valley and Wall Street about a secret book, a system so powerful it was supposedly banned by the church and studied by billionaires in private libraries behind closed doors. That book is The Master Key System by Charles F. Haanel, and what you are about to discover is not folklore or legend, but a documented methodology that has shaped empires while remaining hidden from the public eye. The whispers were true. There exists a mechanical process for unlocking human potential, and you have been living your entire life without knowing the combination to your own vault. Charles F. Haanel was not a poet spinning dreams into metaphors. He was a tycoon who built a business empire and then reverse-engineered the blueprint of his own success. He did not write about wishing upon stars or hoping for miracles. He wrote about causality, the iron law that governs every result you see in your life. Where others saw randomness and luck, Haanel saw patterns and mechanisms as predictable as the gears in a Swiss watch. He reveals that success is not an accident to be hoped for, stumbled upon or granted by fate, but a scientific effect to be engineered with precision and deliberation. The master key is the blueprint of that engineering, a system where thought becomes the architect, emotion becomes the builder, and manifestation becomes the inevitable construction that rises from properly laid foundations. You have been taught to treat success as lightning that strikes the fortunate. Haanel teaches you to become the generator of your own electricity, to produce the voltage on demand rather than waiting passively for the storm. This distinction is not semantic. It is the difference between a passenger and a pilot, between someone who experiences life and someone who creates it. In this video, we are not just reading a book or discussing abstract philosophy. We are receiving a clearance code that has been locked in a vault marked for elite use only for over a century. We will examine the mechanical levers of your mind that, when pulled in the right order and with the right force, unlock the potential that is currently sleeping in your basement, untouched and unexploited. You possess machinery of staggering power that you have never been taught to operate, and this machinery sits idle while you struggle with manual labor that could be automated. The combination to this machinery is not complex, but it is precise, and most people spend their entire lives standing in front of the safe, spinning the dial randomly, hoping for an accidental opening that will never come. Today you receive the exact sequence, the numbers, the direction of each turn, and the final pull that swings the door wide open to reveal what has always been yours but never accessed. The question is not whether you possess this power. You do, by birthright and by design, but whether you will finally learn to activate it or continue to live as a king who has forgotten he owns a kingdom. Haanel teaches that you live in two worlds simultaneously, and your failure to understand this binary reality is the reason you remain trapped in circumstances you claim to despise. The world within is the realm of thought and feeling, the invisible workshop where every tangible thing is first constructed in blueprint form before a single atom of physical matter is arranged. The world without is the realm of circumstance and matter, the visible manifestation of those interior blueprints made solid and observable. The catastrophic mistake that 99% of humanity makes is attempting to change the world without by manipulating the world without directly, trying to rearrange the furniture of their lives while leaving the architect's plans untouched and unrevised. This is not just inefficient. It is futile, a Sisyphean nightmare of perpetual effort that produces only temporary results before circumstances revert to their original configuration. It is like trying to change the movie by screaming at the screen, punching the projection, or painting over the images with your own preferred scenes, all while the projector continues to run the same film reel in the booth behind you. You can scratch the screen, you can redecorate the theater, you can even destroy the screen entirely, but none of these frantic actions alter the movie itself, because the movie is not on the screen. It is in the projector, and the projector is your consciousness. This is why people exhaust themselves with effort and still fail, why they work themselves into early graves and die poor, why they sacrifice relationships and health for goals that dissolve the moment they stop pushing. They are fighting the projection instead of changing the film. They are attempting surgery on a shadow instead of moving the object that casts it. Every circumstance in your life, your bank account, your relationships, your health, your opportunities, is a shadow cast by an interior configuration of thought and feeling, and you cannot change a shadow by attacking the shadow directly. You must move the object, and the object is your consciousness. Haanel is ruthlessly clear on this point. The world without is completely, totally, and absolutely powerless to resist the configurations imposed upon it by the world within. Matter is obedient. Circumstance is plastic. The external world has no choice but to conform to the internal template you are holding, whether that template is one of poverty or abundance, sickness or health, limitation or power. The universe is not conspiring against you. It is conspiring with you, manifesting with perfect fidelity whatever blueprint you are handing it through your habitual patterns of thought and feeling. Most people hold blueprints of lack, and then wonder why lack is what gets constructed in their experience. They think thoughts of limitation, feel emotions of scarcity, and then act shocked when limitation and scarcity appear in physical form around them. They blame the economy, the government, their parents, their education, their circumstances, as if these external factors possess independent power to override the creative force of consciousness. This is the inversion that keeps people enslaved. They believe the world without is the cause, and the world within is the effect, when in reality, the exact opposite is true. Your thoughts do not react to your circumstances. Your circumstances react to your thoughts. Your feelings do not respond to your bank account. Your bank account responds to your feelings. The causality runs in only one direction, from interior to exterior, from invisible to visible, from consciousness to matter, and no amount of effort applied in the wrong direction will reverse this flow. You cannot think poverty and manifest wealth. You cannot feel weakness and experience strength. You cannot hold an interior state of chaos and expect an exterior life of order. The master key system is the recognition that you are not a victim of the world without, but the creator of it, and that your creative power is exercised not through physical labor, but through mental governance. When Haanel speaks of the world within, he is not speaking metaphorically or poetically. He is identifying the actual location of creative power in your life. This interior realm is not secondary to the external world. It is primary, causal, and absolute in its authority. The thoughts you think, the feelings you cultivate, the mental images you hold, these are not passive responses to reality, but active commands that reality must obey. You are broadcasting instructions every moment of every day, and the universe is a perfect receiver that never misses a signal and never disobeys an order. The problem is that most people are broadcasting static, contradictory commands that produce confused and disappointing results. They want wealth, but think poverty. They desire love, but feel unworthy. They claim to seek success, but hold images of failure in their imagination. And then they look at the confusion in their external lives and conclude that manifestation doesn't work, or that the universe is unfair, when in fact the universe has manifested their actual interior state with perfect precision. They simply don't like what they've been creating because they've been unconscious of what they were creating it with. The master key mechanism is therefore elegantly simple in its operation. The world within is the projector, and the world without is the projection. If you want to change the picture on the screen of your life, you must change the film reel inside the projector of your consciousness. You must stop frantically clawing at your circumstances and start deliberately cultivating the interior states that will automatically produce different circumstances. This is not about positive thinking as a cosmetic strategy to feel better about bad situations. This is about recognizing thought as the builder and emotion as the cement that hardens thought into physical form. Haanel instructs you to cultivate a wealth consciousness within before a single dollar can appear without. Not because the universe rewards good thoughts with money as a prize, but because wealth consciousness is the mold into which abundance must pour itself. Money does not create wealth consciousness. Wealth consciousness creates money. Health does not create a health consciousness. Health consciousness creates health. Success does not create a success consciousness. Success consciousness creates success. The order is non-negotiable and cannot be reversed no matter how much you might wish to see results first and adjust your thinking afterward. This is the secret that has been hidden from the masses. You already possess the projector. You are already creating your life. You are already manifesting with every thought and feeling, whether you know it or not. The question is never, can I manifest? But only, what am I manifesting? And the answer is always, you are manifesting the exact equivalent of your interior state. If your interior state is confused, your external life will be confused. If your interior state is fearful, your external life will present situations that justify fear. If your interior state is one of power, clarity, and abundance, your external life must conform to that template, because matter has no power to resist consciousness. Circumstance has no power to override thought. And the world without exists for only one purpose: to give you tangible evidence of the world within you are carrying. Change the world within, and the world without must change. This is not philosophy, this is physics. This is not hope, this is law. And this law operates with or without your understanding, with or without your belief, with or without your permission, because it is the fundamental mechanism by which consciousness translates itself into experience. The master key mechanism operates on a foundation of unshakable logic that demolishes every excuse you have ever made for limitation and powerlessness. Haanel does not ask you to believe him on faith or accept his teachings on trust. He invites you to follow the deductive reasoning that proves you possess infinite potential, not as a motivational platitude, but as a mathematical certainty. Begin with the premise that virtually all scientists, philosophers, and spiritual teachers agree upon. The universe is infinite. Not large, not vast, but actually infinite, without boundary, without limit, without end. If this premise is true, and if you are part of this universe, then you must necessarily possess the same essential nature as the whole of which you are a part. You cannot be a finite fragment extracted from an infinite source. The mathematics of existence do not permit such a separation. A drop of the ocean is not less ocean than the entire body of water. It is ocean in miniature, possessing every quality of the whole in concentrated form. Therefore, if the universe is infinite in its power, intelligence, and creative capacity, then you, as an individualized expression of that universe, must possess infinite potential as your birthright and fundamental nature. Limitation, therefore, is not a fact about you. It is a logical error you have been taught to accept as truth. When you say, "I cannot," you are not reporting on the actual capabilities of your consciousness. You are repeating a learned falsehood that contradicts the mathematics of your own existence. If the universe can create galaxies, then you can create a business. If the universe can organize trillions of cells into the miracle of your body without your conscious effort, then you can organize your life into prosperity without struggle. If the universe can convert thought into matter, which it does constantly everywhere without exception, then you can convert your thoughts into wealth, health, and success. The only question is whether you will align your finite mind with the infinite mind that is your source, or whether you will continue to accept the artificial boundaries that have been programmed into your consciousness through years of conditioning, doubt, and fear. Haanel teaches that you must use logic to talk yourself out of poverty, to systematically dismantle every belief in limitation by tracing it back to its source and exposing it as a contradiction of your fundamental nature. You are not limited because you cannot be limited. Limitation is a lie you have been telling yourself, and the moment you stop telling it, limitation will dissolve like fog in sunlight. This is not motivational speaking. This is deductive reasoning applied to the nature of consciousness. If A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. If the universe is infinite and you are the universe individualized, then you are infinite. Any other conclusion is logically incoherent. But most people never complete this chain of reasoning because they stop at the appearance of circumstances and treat those circumstances as evidence of their nature, when circumstances are actually evidence of their past thinking. They look at an empty bank account and conclude, "I am poor," when the truth is, I have been thinking poverty, they look at a sick body and conclude, I am weak, when the truth is, I have been holding thoughts of weakness. They look at failure and conclude, I am a failure, when the truth is, I have been programming failure into my consciousness and watching it materialize with perfect precision. The circumstances are not the cause, they are the effect, and effects can be changed by changing causes, but causes cannot be changed by fighting effects. Haanel takes the law of attraction out of the realm of mysticism and places it squarely in the realm of physics by treating it like algebra. Thought is energy, not metaphorically but literally. Modern quantum physics has confirmed what Haanel taught a century ago. Everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies, and matter is simply energy vibrating slowly enough to become perceivable by physical senses. Thoughts are energy vibrating at high frequencies, and like energy attracts like energy according to the law of resonance. If you hold a thought of strength, you are not engaging in wishful thinking. You are mathematically altering your energetic vibration to match the frequency of strong circumstances, strong people, strong opportunities. You are tuning your radio dial to a specific station, and the universe must deliver the programming that corresponds to that frequency. This is not magic. This is frequency matching. The same principle that allows your radio to pull a specific station out of the air, even though dozens of signals are passing through the same space simultaneously. You are not creating something from nothing. You are selecting from the infinite possibilities that already exist by choosing which frequency you will vibrate at through your habitual thoughts and feelings. Most people vibrate at the frequency of whatever circumstances they are currently experiencing, which locks them into those circumstances perpetually. They look at lack and feel lack, which vibrates at the frequency of lack, which attracts more lack, which they look at and feel more deeply, which vibrates at an even stronger frequency of lack, in an endless downward spiral. They are using the law of attraction perfectly. They are just using it to create more of what they don't want, instead of what they do want. The law itself is neutral. It responds to whatever signal you are broadcasting without judgment or preference. You can use the law to create poverty or wealth, sickness or health, failure or success, but you cannot avoid using the law because thought is energy, and energy must attract matching energy whether you believe in the process or not. This is why Haanel insists that you must become conscious of your thought patterns and deliberate in your mental activity, because unconscious thought produces unconscious results, and unconscious results are almost always undesirable, because most unconscious thought is negative, fearful, and limited. The mathematical precision of this system means that you can predict your future with accuracy by examining your present thoughts. If you are thinking poverty today, you are creating poverty for tomorrow. If you are thinking wealth today, you are creating wealth for tomorrow. There is a time lag between cause and effect, which is why people fail to see the connection between their thoughts and their circumstances, but the connection is absolute and unbreakable. Every thought you think is a seed you plant, and that seed will grow into a corresponding experience in your physical world, as surely as an apple seed grows into an apple tree. You cannot plant apple seeds and harvest oranges. You cannot think poverty and harvest wealth. You cannot feel weakness and harvest strength. The harvest is determined by the seed, and the seed is your thought. Haanel is teaching you to become a conscious gardener of your mind, to stop scattering seeds randomly and start planting deliberately, knowing that whatever you plant will grow and produce fruit according to its kind. This is the law of growth applied to consciousness. Whatever you give attention to will increase in your experience. Whatever you feed with emotion will multiply in your life. And whatever you hold in your imagination will eventually materialize in your circumstances, because the universe has no choice but to reflect back to you the contents of your consciousness in physical form. If Wallace Wattles teaches you how to drive the car of success, showing you which pedals to press, when to steer, how to navigate the roads that lead to wealth and achievement, then Charles Haanel opens the hood and shows you the engine, the transmission, the electrical system, and every mechanical component that makes the vehicle function. Wattles gives you the philosophy, the what and the why. Haanel gives you the physics, the how and the mechanism. You need both masters, because without Wattles you might not believe the journey is possible. But without Haanel you are driving a car you don't understand. unable to diagnose problems, unable to optimize performance, unable to repair breakdowns when they occur. Wattles tells you that thinking in a certain way will produce wealth. Haanel explains exactly what that certain way does to your consciousness, how it reorganizes your mental energy, why it alters your vibrational frequency, and through what specific process the interior change manifests as exterior transformation. Where Wattles speaks of formless substance as the raw material from which all things are created, Haanel maps the territory between your individual mind and that infinite intelligence, showing you the bridges you must cross and the connections you must establish. This is not a matter of choosing one teacher over the other. It is recognizing that they are giving you different views of the same mountain, and you need both perspectives to successfully make the climb. Wattles approaches from the south, showing you the gentler slopes and the philosophical reasons to attempt the ascent. Haanel approaches from the north, showing you the technical skills required to navigate the steeper faces and the psychological equipment you must develop to withstand the altitude. Together, they provide a complete system. Wattles gives you the faith to begin, and Haanel gives you the method to continue when faith alone is not enough to sustain you through difficulty. Many people read Wattles and feel inspired, but remain confused about the actual mechanics of manifestation, the specific mental exercises that translate inspiration into action and action into results. Haanel removes all confusion by providing a step-by-step system, a literal course of study with weekly lessons and practical exercises that build upon each other like a curriculum designed to transform an amateur into a master. The genius of combining these two teachers is that Wattles prevents you from becoming too mechanical in your approach, from treating manifestation as a cold, purely technical process devoid of gratitude, generosity, and heart, while Haanel prevents you from becoming too mystical in your approach, from treating manifestation as a vague, hopeful practice without structure, discipline, or measurable progression. Wattles reminds you that you are working with a living substance that responds to love and purpose, not just mechanical manipulation. Haanel reminds you that this living substance operates according to laws as precise as mathematics, and that love without method produces little more than good intentions, while method without love produces hollow victories that fail to satisfy. The synthesis of these teachings creates a complete practitioner, someone who understands both the heart and the science of creation, someone who can be grateful without being passive, someone who can be methodical without being cold, someone who brings both faith and expertise to the work of building a life worth living. Where Wattles speaks of formless substance in somewhat abstract terms, describing it as the raw material of creation that fills all space and responds to thought, Haanel becomes startlingly concrete by locating the physical connection point in your body where your finite consciousness interfaces with this infinite intelligence. This connection point is the solar plexus, the nerve center located in your abdomen that Haanel calls the sun of the body because it radiates energy to every organ and system just as the sun radiates light to the planets. Modern anatomy calls this the celiac plexus, a complex network of nerves that governs unconscious functions and has been recognized by ancient traditions as a center of power. But Haanel goes further than anatomy books by explaining its metaphysical function. The solar plexus is not just a nerve cluster. It is the link between the finite mind, your conscious individual awareness, and the infinite energy, the universal intelligence that animates all life. It is the battery you must charge, the generator you must activate, the radio receiver you must tune if you want to access the power that creates worlds and builds empires. This is why Haanel's system includes exercises for the solar plexus specifically, visualization techniques designed to increase your awareness of this center, breathing practices designed to energize it, concentration exercises designed to strengthen your ability to hold steady awareness there. When Wattles tells you to think in the certain way, part of what makes that thinking effective is that you are unconsciously activating your solar plexus, charging it with mental energy, and thereby establishing a stronger connection to the formless substance he describes. But without Haanel's explicit instruction, most people never make this connection consciously, never deliberately strengthen this link, never maximize the power available to them because they don't know where the power is stored or how to access it. It is like living in a house with unlimited electricity, but never learning where the circuit breaker is located. You might stumble upon power occasionally by accident, but you remain at the mercy of random fluctuations instead of commanding the energy consciously and consistently. The solar plexus becomes the bridge between Wallace Wattles' philosophical instruction and Charles Haanel's practical methodology. When Wattles tells you to impress your vision upon formless substance through grateful thinking, Haanel shows you that this impression is transmitted through the solar plexus, which converts mental energy into a signal that the universe receives and responds to. When Wattles tells you that you must hold your vision constantly, Haanel explains that this constant holding builds up a charge in your solar plexus like a capacitor storing voltage, and that this accumulated charge eventually discharges into your circumstances as manifestation. The two teachers are not contradicting each other. They are describing the same process from different angles, and when you combine their insights, you gain a three-dimensional understanding that neither teacher alone can provide. You understand not just that you must think in a certain way, Wattles, but also what specific mental and physical mechanisms are activated when you think in that certain way, Haanel. This synthesis is crucial because it prevents two common failures that plague students of manifestation. The first failure is reading Wattles, feeling inspired, attempting to think positively for a few days or weeks, seeing no immediate results, and concluding that it doesn't work, before ever developing the actual skill of sustained mental focus that Haanel teaches. These people never learn that manifestation requires building strength in specific mental muscles through deliberate practice, not just hoping that positive thoughts will magically override years of negative programming. The second failure is reading Haanel, becoming fascinated by the mechanical precision of the system, but losing sight of the greater purpose and becoming so focused on technique that they forget Wattles' essential teaching about gratitude, contribution, and working for the benefit of all. These people develop skill but remain disconnected from the heart that makes skill meaningful, and they often manifest material success while remaining spiritually empty, achieving wealth without fulfillment. The master student studies both teachers and integrates their wisdom into a unified practice. From Wattles, you learn the philosophy of abundance, the attitude of gratitude, the imperative of contribution, and the vision of working with a living substance that wants to express itself through you. From Haanel, you learn the mechanics of consciousness, the discipline of concentration, the science of the solar plexus, and the systematic development of mental power through progressive exercises. Together, these teachings create a practitioner who is both inspired and skilled, both faithful and methodical, both heart-centered and intellectually rigorous. You become someone who can hold a vision with the passion that Wattles teaches while executing the specific mental disciplines that Haanel prescribes, and this combination is what transforms students who read books into masters who create realities. You are not choosing between philosophy and science. You are uniting them into a complete system that addresses both the why and the how, both the soul and the mechanism, both the destination and the vehicle that will carry you there. Haanel's system is ruthlessly practical, stripping away all mystical pretense and beginning not with grand theories about the universe, but with a simple, almost insulting exercise that most people dismiss as irrelevant. His first lesson is not about money, not about visualization, not about the law of attraction. It is about the body, specifically your ability to sit perfectly still for 15 minutes without moving a single muscle. No twitching, no scratching, no shifting weight, no adjusting posture, no relieving discomfort. Just absolute, complete physical immobility maintained through conscious will against every impulse of the nervous system to move, fidget, or react to sensation. Why does a system promising to unlock your hidden potential and manifest abundance begin with such a seemingly trivial exercise? Because you cannot control the universe if you cannot even control your own muscles, and if you cannot command your body to remain still for 15 minutes, you have no realistic hope of commanding your mind to remain focused on a vision for 15 weeks or 15 months while manifestation occurs. This exercise is a test and a revelation. It reveals with brutal honesty the actual level of your self-mastery. which for most people is shockingly low despite their confident self-assessments. You discover within the first minute that your body has been giving you orders your entire life, and you have been obeying unconsciously, scratching when it demands to be scratched, moving when it demands to be moved, seeking comfort when it demands relief from discomfort. You have been a servant to your nervous system's every whim, and this servitude has trained you in weakness, passivity, and reaction rather than strength, mastery, and deliberate action. The inability to sit still is not a minor inconvenience. It is evidence of a consciousness that has never learned to command itself, and a consciousness that cannot command itself cannot command circumstances. The exercise therefore serves as both diagnosis and treatment. It shows you how weak your will actually is, and then it strengthens that will through repeated practice until you develop the mental muscle necessary for the deeper work ahead. But the exercise accomplishes something even more important than building willpower. It teaches you to inhibit output, to stop the constant dissipation of mental and nervous energy that keeps most people perpetually depleted. Every twitch, every fidget, every unnecessary movement is an expenditure of energy, a leak in the battery that prevents you from accumulating the charge necessary for manifestation. Most people's nervous systems are like a bucket with a dozen holes in the bottom. Energy pours in through food, rest, and experience, but it pours out just as quickly through tension, anxiety, and unconscious movement. They never build up a reserve of power because they never learn to plug the leaks, to hold the energy rather than dispersing it through useless activity. Haanel's stillness exercise forces you to become conscious of these leaks and to deliberately stop them, creating a buildup of mental energy that can then be channeled into focused thought rather than wasted on nervous discharge. This physical stillness creates a powerful feedback loop that amplifies your mental capabilities. As you hold your body still, your mind becomes calmer because the body and mind are not separate systems, but different aspects of one unified organism. When the body stops moving, the mind stops racing, and when the mind stops racing, deeper levels of concentration become possible. This concentrated mental state is what Haanel calls the master key, the focused thought that can be directed with precision toward a specific outcome rather than scattering randomly across 1,000 different objects of attention throughout the day. The difference between a flashlight and a laser is not the amount of light they produce, but the degree of focus. A flashlight scatters photons in all directions and can barely illuminate a room, while a laser focuses photons into a single beam and can cut through steel. Your mind is currently operating like a flashlight, producing mental energy, but scattering it across worry, fantasy, random observation, and trivial concerns. Haanel's exercises transform your mind into a laser by teaching you to gather all that scattered energy and focus it into a single point of concentration that can cut through any obstacle between you and your goal. The progression of Haanel's exercises is carefully designed to build this focusing power gradually, like a weightlifter who adds small increments to the barbell over time rather than attempting to lift maximum weight immediately. You begin with 15 minutes of physical stillness, because this is difficult enough to be challenging, but achievable enough to prevent discouragement. Once you master physical stillness, you progress to mental stillness, sitting still while also quieting the internal dialogue, the endless stream of thoughts that normally dominate consciousness. This is exponentially more difficult than physical stillness, because the mind resists silence more fiercely than the body resists immobility, but it is also exponentially more powerful as a tool for manifestation. A mind that can be still on command, that can be directed to focus on a single thought and hold that thought without distraction, is a mind that possesses the master key, the ability to impress its will upon the formless substance that Wattles describes, and to do so with such intensity and clarity that manifestation becomes inevitable rather than uncertain. Most people fail at manifestation, not because the principles don't work, but because they have never developed the mental strength required to apply the principles consistently. They read about visualization and try it once or twice, allowing their attention to wander after 30 seconds, wondering why nothing happens, never understanding that they are trying to cut steel with scattered light when what they need is a laser. Haanel's exercises build the laser. They develop the concentration muscles through progressive resistance training, starting with simple physical control and advancing through stages of increasing difficulty until you can hold a mental image with such unwavering focus that the universe has no choice but to deliver its physical equivalent. This is not talent, it is training. This is not a gift bestowed on the lucky few, it is a skill developed through deliberate practice. And the practice begins not with affirmations or vision boards, but with the humbling and revealing exercise of sitting perfectly still while your body screams for permission to move and your mind rages against the discipline you are imposing upon it. The stillness exercise is therefore not preliminary to the real work. It is the real work, the foundation upon which everything else is built. Without this foundation of self-command, all other techniques are houses built on sand. They may look impressive temporarily, but they collapse at the first storm of doubt, distraction, or difficulty. With this foundation firmly established, every other practice becomes exponentially more effective because you are bringing focused power to bear rather than scattered hope. You are commanding rather than wishing, directing rather than requesting, creating rather than begging. And this transformation from weakness to strength, from reaction to command, from servitude to mastery, begins with the simple act of sitting perfectly still and discovering that your body is either your servant or your master, and that the choice of which it will be is determined not by circumstance, but by your willingness to endure the temporary discomfort of imposing your will upon the habitual patterns that have been controlling you without your conscious awareness. The master key is not given, it is forged. And the forge is the discipline of stillness that most people are unwilling to practice because they want shortcuts to power without understanding that power without discipline is fantasy, and discipline is the only path that leads from fantasy to reality. Haanel teaches that we can deduce our future with mathematical precision by following a chain of reasoning that begins with one undeniable premise: the universe is infinite. This is not merely a pleasant idea or an inspirational concept. It is a logical starting point, accepted by scientists, philosophers, and spiritual teachers across every tradition and discipline. If we accept that the universe is infinite, unlimited in power, intelligence, and creative capacity, then we must follow the logic to its inevitable conclusion. You are part of this universe, not separate from it, not outside of it, not excluded from it. You are not an alien visitor from some other realm. You are an expression of this universe, a localized point through which infinite energy focuses itself into individual form. And if you are part of an infinite whole, then you must possess the same essential nature as that whole, just as a single cell in your body possesses the same DNA as every other cell despite appearing to be separate and independent. You cannot be a finite fragment of an infinite source because the mathematics of existence forbid such a separation. The infinite cannot produce the permanently finite any more than the ocean can produce a drop of water that is somehow not ocean. This means that limitation is not a fact about you. It is a logical error, a false conclusion drawn from incomplete observation and faulty reasoning. When you say, "I cannot afford this," you are not making a statement about your essential nature. You are making a statement about your current circumstances, which are themselves nothing more than the materialized equivalent of your past thinking. When you say, "I am not capable of achieving that," you are not reporting on your actual potential. You are reporting on your conditioned beliefs about your potential, beliefs that were installed by parents, teachers, culture, and experience, but that have no basis in the mathematical reality of your existence. If the universe is infinite, and you are the universe individualized, then you possess infinite potential as your birthright. Any belief in limitation is therefore a contradiction of your fundamental nature, a lie you have been taught to accept as truth, a cage built not of iron bars, but of mental habits that can be dismantled through the same process by which they were constructed: thought. Haanel insists that you must use logic to talk yourself out of poverty, to systematically dismantle every belief in limitation by examining it under the harsh light of deductive reasoning and exposing it as logically incoherent. This is not motivational speaking, designed to make you feel better temporarily. This is philosophical argumentation designed to permanently destroy the intellectual foundations upon which your limitations rest. If someone tells you, you cannot become wealthy because you were born poor, the logical response is, does being born into poverty alter the essential nature of my consciousness? Does it separate me from the infinite intelligence that created galaxies and orchestrates the dance of subatomic particles? Or does it merely describe my current circumstances, which are effects rather than causes, and can therefore be changed by changing the causes that produce them? When you apply this level of logical rigor to your limitations, they evaporate like morning fog because they cannot withstand examination. They exist only as long as you accept them unconsciously without questioning their validity. This deductive process is crucial because the mind that believes in limitation cannot manifest abundance, no matter how many techniques it applies or how many affirmations it repeats. You cannot trick yourself into wealth while holding a core belief that wealth is impossible for you. Just as you cannot convince your body to relax while holding your muscles in tension, the surface instruction is overridden by the deeper pattern. Therefore, before you can effectively practice visualization, concentration, or any other manifestation technique, you must first resolve the logical contradictions in your belief system. You must accept at the intellectual level that your potential is infinite, not as a hopeful wish, but as a mathematical certainty derived from your relationship to an infinite universe. Once this logical foundation is established, the techniques become effective because they are no longer fighting against a contradictory belief system. They are building upon a foundation of intellectual certainty that the mind can accept and therefore allow to manifest. Most people skip this foundational work and jump directly to techniques, which is why they fail and conclude that manifestation doesn't work. They try to visualize wealth while believing at a deeper level that wealth is not for people like them. They repeat affirmations of abundance while holding unconscious beliefs in scarcity. They attempt to think positive while maintaining the logical framework that produced their negativity in the first place. This is like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand. The structure may rise a few feet before the foundation collapses and drags everything down with it. Haanel prevents this failure by making you do the difficult intellectual work first. Examine your beliefs about yourself, trace them to their logical foundations, expose the contradictions, and rebuild your belief system on the solid rock of deductive reasoning rather than the shifting sand of conditioned responses. This is not fun. It is not easy. It is not the quick fix that most people are seeking, but it is the only way to create permanent change rather than temporary results that vanish when the initial enthusiasm fades. The power of this approach is that it makes your transformation intellectually inevitable rather than emotionally hopeful. Hope is unstable. It rises and falls with circumstances and feelings. But logical certainty is rock solid. It withstands doubt because it is not based on feeling, but on reasoning that cannot be refuted without abandoning logic itself. When you know with logical certainty that you possess infinite potential because you are part of an infinite universe, this knowledge does not waver when circumstances are difficult. When you understand that limitation is a logical error rather than a fact about reality, you do not abandon this understanding when obstacles appear. You have moved from belief, which is vulnerable to contradiction, to knowledge, which is invulnerable to circumstances. And this movement from belief to knowledge is what separates masters who manifest consistently from amateurs who experience occasional lucky accidents, followed by long periods of confusion and failure. The master has resolved the logical foundations and built upon certainty. The amateur is building upon hope and remains vulnerable to every wind of doubt that blows through consciousness. Haanel treats the law of attraction not as a mystical secret whispered by ancient sages, but as a principle of physics as reliable and predictable as the law of gravity, and he explains it with the precision of algebra rather than the vagueness of inspiration. Thought is energy, not metaphorically or symbolically, but literally and measurably. Modern quantum physics has validated what Haanel taught a century ago. At the most fundamental level, everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies, and the apparent solidity of matter is an illusion created by energy. vibrating slowly enough to become perceivable by limited human senses. Your thoughts are energy vibrating at high frequencies, invisible but nonetheless real, and these thought energies emit a vibrational signature into the field of consciousness that surrounds and interpenetrates all physical matter. Like energy attracts like energy according to the law of resonance, the same principle that causes a tuning fork to vibrate when another tuning fork of the same frequency is struck nearby. If you hold a thought of strength, you are not engaging in wishful thinking or psychological self-help. You are mathematically altering your energetic vibration to match the frequency of strong circumstances, strong people, strong opportunities, strong resources. This is not magic. This is frequency matching, the same principle that allows your radio to pull a specific station out of the air, even though dozens of radio signals are passing through the same physical space simultaneously. The signals are all there, broadcasting constantly, but your radio receiver can only perceive the signal that matches the frequency to which it is tuned. When you turn the dial, you are not creating new radio stations. You are selecting which of the already existing broadcasts you will receive. Similarly, when you change your habitual thoughts and feelings, you are not creating new possibilities in the universe. You are tuning your consciousness to receive different possibilities from the infinite array that already exists in the field of potential. Wealth exists right now at this moment as a potential reality waiting to be actualized through someone who will tune their consciousness to the frequency of wealth. Health exists, success exists, love exists, all as potential realities that become actual realities when a consciousness aligns with their frequency through sustained thought and feeling. The genius of understanding manifestation as frequency matching rather than magical creation is that it removes the confusion and desperation that plague most students of the law of attraction. You are not trying to manipulate the universe into giving you something it doesn't want to give. You are simply tuning your receiver to perceive and attract what already exists at a different frequency. You are not begging for wealth. You are aligning with wealth. You are not hoping for opportunities. You are resonating with opportunities. And this alignment happens not through physical effort, but through mental discipline, by deliberately and consistently holding thoughts that vibrate at the frequency of your desired outcome until your entire consciousness stabilizes at that frequency and remains there automatically, without conscious effort to maintain it. This is what Haanel means by mental chemistry. You are altering the vibrational composition of your consciousness the same way a chemist alters the molecular composition of a substance by adding or removing specific elements. Most people unconsciously use the law of attraction to perpetuate their current circumstances through a vicious cycle they don't recognize. They look at their lack and feel lack, which vibrates at the frequency of lack, which attracts more lack, which they then look at and feel more deeply, which vibrates at an even stronger frequency of lack, in an endless downward spiral that strengthens itself with every iteration. They are tuning their radio to the poverty station and then wondering why they keep hearing poverty programming, never recognizing that they are the ones turning the dial with their habitual patterns of thought and feeling. They blame the universe for not delivering wealth while broadcasting a frequency of scarcity. They complain that manifestation doesn't work while demonstrating perfect manifestation of their actual vibrational state. They simply don't like what they're manifesting because they've been unconscious of what they were creating it with. The law of attraction is neutral and impersonal. It responds to whatever frequency you are broadcasting without judgment, preference, or discrimination between good and bad frequencies. You can use the law to create poverty or wealth, sickness or health, failure or success, but you cannot avoid using the law because thought is energy, and energy must attract matching energy, whether you believe in the process or not, whether you intend it or not, whether you are conscious of it or not. This is why Haanel insists with such urgency that you must become conscious of your thought patterns and deliberate in your mental activity, monitoring your thoughts the way a radio engineer monitors broadcast frequencies, correcting deviations immediately, maintaining the desired signal with unwavering consistency. Unconscious thought produces unconscious results, and unconscious results are almost always undesirable because most unconscious thought is negative, fearful, and limited. the default programming installed by a culture that profits from your weakness and depends on your limitation. The mathematical precision of this system means that you can predict your future with accuracy by examining your present thoughts, not as prophecy, but as simple cause and effect analysis. If you are thinking poverty today, you are creating poverty for tomorrow as surely as planting corn seeds creates corn stalks. If you are thinking wealth today, you are creating wealth for tomorrow as surely as planting apple seeds creates apple trees. There is a time lag between cause and effect, between thought and manifestation, which is why people fail to see the connection between their mental activity and their circumstances. They think poverty on Monday and expect wealth on Tuesday, then declare the system broken when wealth doesn't appear instantly. But the time lag does not invalidate the connection. It only obscures it from those who lack patience or understanding. A farmer plants seeds in spring and harvests crops in fall, and no farmer is surprised by the delay or concludes that planting doesn't work because results aren't immediate. Yet, in the realm of consciousness, people expect instant results and abandon the practice at the first delay, never understanding that they are harvesting today what they planted months or years ago through their habitual mental patterns. Haanel teaches you to become a conscious farmer of your mind, to stop scattering seeds randomly through unconscious thinking and start planting deliberately through focused mental discipline, knowing that whatever you plant will grow and produce fruit according to its kind. You cannot plant apple seeds and harvest oranges. You cannot think poverty and harvest wealth. You cannot feel weakness and harvest strength. The harvest is determined by the seed, and the seed is your thought. This is the law of growth applied to consciousness. Whatever you give attention to will increase in your experience. Whatever you feed with emotion will multiply in your life, and whatever you hold in your imagination will eventually materialize in your circumstances, because the universe operates according to law, not whim. And the law states that consciousness is cause and circumstance is effect, that interior creates exterior, that thought becomes thing with the same reliability that acorns become oak trees. Once you understand this law intellectually and accept it as fact rather than theory, you can begin to apply it systematically, and your results will be as predictable as any scientific experiment conducted under controlled conditions. The master key system is validated not by philosophical argument alone, but by the empirical evidence of countless individuals who have applied its principles and experienced transformation from limitation to power, from poverty to wealth, from confusion to clarity. Charles Haanel himself was the proof of concept, not a theorist speculating about success from the comfort of academic distance, but a practitioner who built a substantial business empire and then reverse-engineered the mental principles that had produced his material results. He did not write the master key system as a hypothesis to be tested. He wrote it as a map of territory he had already traversed, as instructions from someone standing at the summit telling those at the base camp which route actually works, when all the obvious paths lead to dead ends and exhaustion. This is crucial because it means you are not being asked to experiment with untested ideas. You're being invited to follow a proven methodology that has already produced results for the person teaching it. But Haanel is not the only validation. He is merely the most systematic documenter of principles that have been discovered and rediscovered throughout history by individuals who achieved extraordinary results and then examined their own mental processes to understand what had worked. The esoteric traditions speak of these principles in the language of mysticism. The Hermetic philosophers encoded them in symbolic texts. The early scientists, who were also alchemists, understood that transformation of circumstances begins with transformation of consciousness. What Haanel did was translate these scattered insights into a coherent system, stripping away the mystical language that obscures understanding and presenting the principles in clear, practical terms that any intelligent person could grasp and apply. He democratized knowledge that had previously been hidden in obscure texts or guarded by secret societies, and he did so precisely because he understood that these principles work for anyone who applies them correctly, regardless of background, education, or current circumstances. The validation extends beyond historical figures to modern practitioners, the entrepreneurs who have used these principles to build businesses from nothing, the artists who have used them to break through creative blocks and achieve recognition, the ordinary people who have used them to escape poverty and construct lives of abundance and meaning. These are not anomalies or lucky exceptions. They are data points confirming that the principles work when applied with understanding and consistency. The reason more people don't experience these results is not that the principles are flawed, but that most people never apply them correctly. They read about the ideas, feel temporarily inspired, attempt a few half-hearted exercises, see no immediate results, and abandon the practice before the accumulated mental force has reached critical mass. They are trying to boil water, but removing the pot from the heat every few minutes to check if it's boiling yet, never allowing the temperature to build to the necessary threshold. The scientific validation comes from modern quantum physics, which has confirmed that consciousness affects matter at the subatomic level, that observation influences what is observed, that the act of measurement changes the state of particles, and that reality at its most fundamental level is not solid matter but probability waves that collapse into particular states only when consciousness interacts with them. These discoveries, made decades after Haanel wrote his system, have provided empirical support for what he taught through deduction and experience. That consciousness is primary, matter is secondary, and the relationship between them is one of cause to effect. You are not a passive observer of an objective reality that exists independently of your awareness. You are an active participant in a creative process where your thoughts, expectations, and observations literally shape the physical reality you experience. This is not New Age fantasy. This is mainstream physics published in peer-reviewed journals and confirmed through repeatable experiments. The psychological validation comes from the field of neuroscience, which has demonstrated that the brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual physical experience. The same neural pathways are activated, the same neurochemicals are released, the same learning occurs. This explains why visualization works. When you hold a mental image of success with sufficient intensity and sensory detail, your brain treats this as a real experience and begins to wire itself for that reality, creating neural patterns that support the behaviors and perceptions necessary to manifest what you have visualized. You are not pretending or engaging in fantasy. You're using the brain's fundamental operating system to reprogram yourself at the neurological level, building the internal infrastructure that will automatically generate the external circumstances you desire. This is why Haanel insists on vivid, detailed visualization rather than vague hoping. The clarity and intensity of the mental image determines the strength of the neural programming that results. The spiritual validation comes from every genuine mystical tradition, which teaches in its own language that the kingdom of heaven is within, that as a man thinks so is he, that faith can move mountains, that consciousness creates reality. These are not moral platitudes or poetic metaphors. They are descriptions of the actual mechanics of manifestation, expressed in the language of spirituality rather than science. When Jesus said, "According to your faith it will be done unto you," he was teaching the law of attraction. When Buddha taught that all that we are is the result of what we have thought, he was teaching the primacy of consciousness. When the Hermetic principle states, "as above, so below, as within, so without," it is describing the relationship between the world within and the world without that Haanel explains in systematic detail. The spiritual traditions are not separate from or opposed to the scientific understanding. They are parallel descriptions of the same underlying reality, and the master integrates both perspectives into a unified understanding that honors the sacredness of the process while also understanding its mechanical precision. What emerges from this multi-layered validation is not blind faith, but rational confidence based on converging evidence from multiple independent sources. When philosophy, science, psychology, spirituality, and empirical results all point to the same conclusion, that consciousness is creative, that thought is cause, that the interior world determines the exterior world, then you are standing on solid ground, not wishful thinking. You can proceed with the certainty that comes from overwhelming evidence, the same certainty a physicist has about gravity or a chemist has about molecular bonds. This certainty is important Because manifestation requires sustained mental effort over time, and you cannot sustain effort without confidence in the process. Doubt is the enemy of manifestation because doubt creates conflicting vibrations that cancel out the positive signal you are trying to broadcast. But when you understand that you are working with principles validated by centuries of practice and decades of research, doubt loses its power to derail you because you know with intellectual certainty that the principles work. The only question is whether you will apply them with sufficient consistency and intensity to produce results. The proof that the master key system works is ultimately personal and cannot be outsourced to authorities or accepted on the testimony of others, no matter how impressive their credentials or achievements. You must validate the principles through your own direct experience, conducting experiments in your own consciousness and observing the results that manifest in your own circumstances. This is not a limitation of the system, but its greatest strength, because it means you do not have to believe anyone's claims or take anything on faith. You can test the principles empirically and verify for yourself whether thought produces results in the way Haanel describes. The invitation is not to belief, but to experimentation, not to acceptance, but to verification. And this scientific approach removes the system from the realm of religion, where you must believe, and places it squarely in the realm of technology, where you can test and confirm. The experiment is simple in design but demanding in execution. Select one specific outcome you wish to manifest, something concrete enough to be measured and verified when it occurs. Create a detailed mental image of this outcome. Engage all your senses in making it vivid and real in imagination. Attach powerful emotion to the image by feeling in advance the satisfaction of achieving it, and then hold this image consistently in consciousness through daily practice of visualization and concentration. Do not waver, do not doubt, do not allow circumstances to convince you that the outcome is impossible. Hold the image with the same certainty that an architect holds the blueprint while the building is under construction, knowing that the visible structure will eventually match the invisible plan. Continue this practice for a specific period. Haanel suggests at least several weeks, and then observe whether the outcome manifests or whether opportunities, resources, and circumstances align to make manifestation possible. What you will discover through this experiment is that manifestation is not instant, but it is inevitable when the conditions are met. The time lag between mental cause and physical effect varies depending on the magnitude of the desired outcome and the strength of your concentration, but the connection is absolute. Small outcomes manifest quickly. Large outcomes require sustained effort over longer periods. But in every case, you will notice that circumstances begin to shift, that opportunities appear that were not previously visible, that resources come to you through channels you did not anticipate, that the universe seems to be conspiring to deliver what you have been holding in consciousness. This is not coincidence, it is causation. You have altered your vibrational frequency through sustained thought, and the universe is responding by delivering experiences that match that frequency, just as a radio delivers programming that matches the frequency to which it is tuned. The validation is strengthened by repetition. The more experiments you conduct, the more outcomes you manifest, the stronger your confidence becomes in the principles. You move from theoretical understanding to empirical knowledge, from belief to certainty, from hope to mastery. You no longer wonder whether the system works. You know it works because you have proven it repeatedly through direct experience. And this personal validation is infinitely more powerful than any testimonial you could read or any authority figure who could assure you of the system's effectiveness, because it is based on your own results in your own life, which cannot be explained away or dismissed as placebo effect or lucky coincidence when the pattern repeats consistently across multiple experiments with different outcomes. The final validation is the transformation of your self-concept from powerless victim of circumstances to conscious creator of experience. As you manifest outcomes through deliberate application of mental principles, you begin to understand at a visceral level that you are not at the mercy of external forces, economic conditions, other people's decisions, or random chance. You are the primary creative force in your life, and everything you experience is either the result of your conscious direction or your unconscious default programming. This realization is simultaneously empowering and sobering. Empowering because it means you can change anything by changing your thoughts, and sobering because it means you can no longer blame anyone or anything for the circumstances you don't like. You must accept full responsibility for your results, which is a heavy burden for those accustomed to victimhood, but an exhilarating liberation for those ready to claim their power. You now hold the master key in your hands, not as a metaphor, but as an actual mechanism of consciousness that you can engage whenever you choose. The door to your hidden potential has always been locked not by external circumstances, but by your own ignorance of where the lock is located and what sequence of mental movements will open it. Every limitation you have experienced, every shortage you have suffered, every failure you have endured has been the result of standing in front of this door without the combination, trying random sequences, hoping for accidental success, never understanding that the combination is precise and that once you know it, the door opens immediately and consistently. The synthesis of what you have learned from Charles Haanel is simple in statement, but profound in implication. You possess infinite potential because you are an individualized expression of an infinite universe. This potential is accessed through the world within, rather than manipulated in the world without. The access mechanism is focused thought sustained by disciplined concentration, and the results manifest with mathematical precision according to the vibrational frequency you maintain through your habitual mental patterns. The message of empowerment that emerges from the master key system is not that you will someday become powerful if you are lucky or if external conditions align favorably. It is that you are already powerful and have always been powerful, but you have been using your power unconsciously to create limitations instead of consciously to create abundance. Every circumstance you see around you is a manifestation of your past thinking, a physical reflection of the mental patterns you have been holding, and this means that different thinking will inevitably produce different circumstances with the same reliability that different seeds produce different plants. You are not waiting for permission from the universe to succeed. You are waiting only for your own decision to think deliberately instead of randomly, to focus instead of scatter, to command instead of beg. The moment you make this decision and begin to apply the principles systematically, transformation begins, and the time lag between decision and manifestation is determined only by the consistency of your application and the strength of your concentration. This is not theory, this is mechanism. This is not hope, this is law. And this law operates whether you believe in it or not, whether you understand it or not, because it is the fundamental principle by which consciousness translates itself into experience. And you cannot escape this principle any more than you can escape gravity. You can only choose whether you will use it consciously to rise or unconsciously allow it to keep you grounded in limitation. The challenge before you now is not to read more books or acquire more information, but to take the master key you have been given and actually insert it into the lock of your consciousness, to turn it with deliberate force against the resistance of years of conditioned thinking, and to push open the door that separates your current limited experience from the infinite potential that has always existed on the other side. This requires not belief but action, not understanding but application, not inspiration but discipline. You must sit perfectly still and discover the weakness of your will, then strengthen that will through practice until you can command your body absolutely. You must practice concentration until your mind can hold a single thought without wavering, building the mental muscle that transforms scattered wishes into focused creative force. You must cultivate wealth consciousness within, while your bank account still shows poverty without, trusting the mechanism enough to persist through the time lag between cause and effect. This is difficult. This is uncomfortable. This is why most people never claim their power and remain trapped in circumstances they claim to despise while possessing the key to freedom in their own consciousness. Write in the comments, "I hold the key." Let this statement be not a hope or a wish, but a declaration of fact, an acknowledgement that you have received the combination, that you understand the mechanism, and that you are now choosing to engage it deliberately rather than remain unconscious of the creative power you have been wielding randomly throughout your life. The master key system is now activated in your awareness, and you can never again claim ignorance of how manifestation works or pretend that you are a victim of forces beyond your control. You hold the key. The door is unlocked. The only question remaining is whether you will push it open and step into the command center of your consciousness, or whether you will remain standing outside in the cold, complaining about the weather, while refusing to enter the warm house that has always been yours to occupy. The choice, as it has always been, is yours alone, and the universe is waiting with perfect patience for you to make it.